Hello, bonjour, hola, and welcome to this course. My name is Julian Melanson, and I'm gonna be the instructor for this cinematography, vlogging, filming course. And we're gonna be talking about how to make your videos look and sound amazing with these simple, straightforward techniques that we're gonna be covering in this course. So let's get right into it. First up, the transformation that you're gonna have by taking this course. If I do my job, you'll be able to create incredible looking and sounding videos with any camera in any situation. And this level of content, these techniques that I'm talking about in this course are gonna be for beginner to intermediate level students. So if you're someone who's shot some things in the past and you're looking for really simple, clear techniques on how to upgrade your style, this is for you. If you're a new beginner novice that has a phone, has a smart device, or has, a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, and you want to start shooting videos and you don't know where to start, this is the perfect course for you as well. So let's get into a micro overview of the main steps that we're gonna go through in this course to achieve the transformation and the new skill set that you're looking for. First up, we're gonna dive into the camera settings, okay? I'm really just gonna cover the most essential manual settings for you to use on your smartphone or on your camera that will allow you to get the best looking video quality for the situation you're shooting in. Next, I'm gonna be going into the most important techniques that you need to know to start shooting better looking videos. Next, I'm gonna be talking about audio and B-roll. So this is really important because a lot of videos I see from students don't have these two essential, fundamental techniques really of how to capture the best sounding audio and how to really upgrade your video style with having proper cutaway shots. So this we're gonna also dive into. And finally, synthesizing all of these techniques to bring them together into one cohesive final product that you will be able to share on your Instagram, on your YouTube channel, on Facebook, on whatever social media or online presence that you have, you'll be able to bring these techniques together. And so we just kind of have a few housekeeping items to get to before really diving into the course content. So first up, this is a one course of a multi-course series. I did it on purpose this way where each course is giving you a different type of information depending on what you're looking for. There's other courses on the editing process. There's other courses on the pre-production and creativity process. So those are linked on my Instagram. Those are linked in the bonus final lecture of this course. You don't gotta worry about it now. I'm just giving you a heads up. Get through this course first, but it's designed for all of these to build on top of each other. All right, so just a little bit about me and my background. I've been a filmmaker pretty much my whole life. I worked at a photography store for like 2 weeks. That was the only time in my life when I wasn't doing film full time. So it's been over 10 years. I started on YouTube. I started doing skateboarding montages. And then I moved out of that and kind of worked my way up the ladder from doing projects with friends to projects with low-end clients to medium-end clients to then working with companies like Red Bull and Discovery Channel, Levi's, Taco Bell. And once I kind of hit a certain point in my career where I got a little bit bored with doing freelance, I kind of got back to my YouTube roots of where I got started, and I started doing filmmaking tutorials and teaching online. And then I created my first filmmaking course where I taught more in depth the stuff that I was teaching on my YouTube channel and that I had learned over my years doing professional film. I put it into that first course, which quickly became a bestseller, and I was like, whoa, I can teach, and this feels like a new version of my filmmaking career. And so next up, I'm a teacher. Like I mentioned, I've been teaching online. I've been doing in-person workshops, doing a little bit of work at YouTube Space LA here in Los Angeles. I flew to Armenia earlier this year, did an in-depth 4-day workshop with about 30 filmmaking students out in Armenia. And next, I'm a yogi. I'm a Kundalini yoga instructor. I practice yoga and meditation daily. That's the way that I keep myself clear, calm, focused, able to create as much as possible, and just move forward in life and just be a better human being overall. And lastly, I love cold showers. I love cold water. It's part of my daily routine as well. I think it's a secret to immortality. With that said, I have just a little 1-minute video that's a recent project. It kind of will give you guys a understanding of what my projects and my content actually looks like, so that you'll understand that when I'm talking about these techniques of setting up the camera, setting up the lighting, getting good audio, you'll see kind of where that information is coming from my past work. So let's check it out.
There's like a culture of people now who they have no clue about like turntable DJing. To some people, DJing is putting a song on and walking out on a stage at a festival and jumping up and down. That is a part of DJing, I guess, now. That's new. But I want to see people be more aware of like what we do in 3 style.
Hopefully that gives you a look into my style and aesthetic, and there's some things that you see in there that maybe you'll want to incorporate into your project, like camera movement, framing, use of focus, all the cool things that we're going to talk about. So now that we've gotten kind of the course introduction and the housekeeping out of the way, I really wanted to start right away with doing a hands-on learning exercise. So in this lecture, you're gonna really be working side by side with me to discover the lighting in the environment that you're in. I'm gonna pull out my phone and I'm gonna do video of myself, and you guys are gonna follow along with that. And I've really found that this is the best way, regardless of skill level. If you're a smartphone shooter, great. If you've been shooting for a while and you're comfortable with lighting, great as well. This is really the best way with the phone. It's gonna give you an instant response instantaneously without having to look back at footage at how angling yourself, how different light sources and all these things change the look and aesthetic of your image. So go ahead and get your phone ready, and you're gonna film yourself along with me on selfie mode. And you're gonna shoot a before shot with the normal ambient lighting of yourself in your environment. And then you're gonna shoot an after shot with the new understandings and techniques that I'm gonna walk you through in this learning lesson. Then you can export and share your before and afters with your fellow students to the Q&A section. If you don't feel like sharing these videos of your face in different lighting, it's totally fine. Instead of that, you can say hi to your fellow students and share what you're excited about learning or creating while going through this course. And so now let's hop into it. So what I'm gonna do is flip over on my phone, and I'm gonna put the camera on myself, and we can see that while I'm talking, this is not a very good looking image. And the reason of that is because the background is blown out, the lighting on me is not very well balanced for this kind of situation. The background's kind of all white. There's no real contrast. It's a little bit better if I just simply turn. Just all I did was probably turn, move my arm 12 inches to my left. And now we have much better light coming directly from this light source. And we have a much better background than the white. So there's just these little tips and tricks that we are doing with the more professional style, more professional equipment, but these things also apply to all the little Instagram, TikTok, Facebook videos that you're doing. All this stuff you can use to upgrade that content that you're doing daily. So let's kind of walk around our space here, and we can already see that huge change of the quality of lighting as I'm walking closer to this window. We can see a huge transition from standing in the middle of the room to now walking over to this light source. So as we can see, if I really want to do high key lighting where my whole face is lit, I'll face directly at the window. If I want more contrasted lighting, because I'm facing two windows here actually, so it's a little bit more tricky, but if I want to make more contrasted lighting, I'm gonna close this window to this side of my face. And now we can get more contrast lighting. But this is purely natural light, just on my cell phone. So we can also see that the background is exposed a lot lower. So that's making me stand out more. But let's continue to kind of go around the house and choose and find what works and what doesn't work. You can see the dramatic change in what I look like when I just turn. I'm in the same exact place that I just was, but if I just turn 180 degrees, this is what this looks like compared to this, okay? So now we're gonna take a look where else is working. So here the light is okay, but I would say that the overall lighting is pretty decent, but it's not giving a good pop, a good kind of glossiness. So let's walk over to this other window, and you can see as I approach and get to this window, you can see my eye color, you can see the kind of highlights on my face, and you can see that if I'm facing directly at the window versus as I turn, we're getting more shadows, right? So this can be, if this is what you're wanting, more of a serious look, more of a contrasted cinematic look, you want more shadows. If you want more of the YouTuber, the whole face is lit, you want to face directly at the window. So now we've got a handle on that. The other thing I wanted to mention was the distance from the camera to the subject and the angle of view. If I put the camera here and I'm looking down to you as the subject, I'm looking down to you as the viewer, you're gonna get some chin action. Some people this works for, some people this doesn't. You have to be the decider of that. But it's a little bit of a weird dominance thing where I'm speaking down to you. As soon as you come to eye level, you see there's more of a we're on the same page. And this is what a lot of people do as well. The kind of looking down, as long as you don't do it too much, that kind of can be a little bit weird angle for most people. But if you can do it a little bit above eye level, it kind of makes the features on the face look a little bit more favorable depending on your face type. But I do want to mention that especially in the selfie video mode, this is a very wide angle lens on the front of most smartphones. Now, the closer I get here, the more it's going to accentuate. What's closer to the lens is going to look bigger, and what's further from the lens is going to look a lot smaller. So depending on your face type, you want to find, now the proportions on my face and my body are very equal. As soon as I start doing this, now you can see my forehead looks really big in proportion to the rest of my face. If I do this, my chin is looking really big. So you want to just keep it in mind that when you're shooting with a wide angle lens, whether it's a smartphone or whether it's a lens on your DSLR or mirrorless camera, you want to know that it's going to be less flattering the closer it is to your face, and it's going to be more flattering when there's a pretty decent amount of distance. I'm holding this about 2.5 feet away from the face. So the angle and the distance makes a very large difference in your overall look and appearance. So we're looking at lighting, we're looking at background, we're looking at distance, and we're looking at angle to the face. That should give you guys plenty of stuff to work with when shooting. From here on out, your videos should look a lot better, a lot more clean, and a lot more highly produced. Alrighty, and so it's time to hop right into the deep end. You're gonna be not seeing my face too much in this section because I wanted to maximize your time with this on-set experience. So don't worry, we're gonna have plenty of FaceTime later in the course. So what we're gonna do is actually open up this door. Oh, you see? But this is really a real life on-set experience for you. So this is going to be a crash course and, you know, a preview of what we're going to be learning throughout this course. So if you're hearing things in these next few learning lessons that you don't know yet, or you don't understand, or it's terminology you've never heard, don't worry. The biggest thing here is me showing you why you would do certain things when making a video. Then we're going to get into the how throughout the course. So this behind the scenes set of learning lessons is just going to help you get the gears turning and kind of open your mind to different video creating possibilities. And so now we're going to time travel to me and Luis right before our shoot. So what is up, guys? So, and I said, what up, guys? Right. We're here today, and for this portion of the course, my friend Luis is going to be taking us through some cinematography principles. So we're all on set today in downtown Los Angeles, and we're going to be taking a look at lens choice, camera movement, and some other cinematography principles that we haven't learned yet in the course. So Luis is a good friend of mine. We've shot together for years.
We're going to have a fun shoot today, and it's going to be, we're going to try all different types of cameras, you know, so I'm glad you're here so I can show you what we're all about, you know. It's going to be fun.
Bada boom, there it is. So I'll put a montage of Luis's Instagram, his website, and his content so you guys can get an idea of the kind of content that he creates. So with that said, I will see you guys in the next learning lesson.
Perfect.
Now let's dive into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is knowing your camera capabilities. Whether you're shooting on a phone or a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you want to know the dynamic range. You want to know the frames per second that your camera will shoot. You want to know the in-body stabilization that it has. These are all going to really dictate what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. Because Luis is really familiar with his camera, he knows he can get away with doing a lot of handheld shots during the shoot because of the in-body image stabilization that his camera has. He also has a really good idea of the type of lighting that's going to work the best for his camera and what slowing down his 60 frames per second footage in post-production is going to look like for the final product. So I really want you to hold on to that and keep in mind that the more comfortable you become with your equipment, the easier it's going to be to translate your idea through your camera into creating the final product that expresses your original idea. So let's say that you have your location picked out. In this case, our main light source is 5500 Kelvin, which is going to be a nice natural looking light because sunlight is between 4500 and 6500. And let's say you planned and blocked out your camera shots and your character movement, and you've chosen your lens, you have everything ready to go, and you're ready to start shooting. Now what do you do? So we're going to really start with the basics here. The most basic of shots that you have to choose from is simply a tripod shot. Now you can see in the situation that we are deciding to shoot this on set is when there's not a whole lot of action going on and we want the viewer to focus on our character. Now in the next shot, when we chose to switch to a gimbal, you can see same character, same outfit, same background, completely different feeling because we're moving our subject and we're moving with our subject. So you can see the comparison here. Tripod shot is very static. Gimbal shot has a lot more energy. And then we go to a handheld shot. This is going to have a less polished and less refined feeling. And Luis is deciding to use it for this shot because it really kind of frees you up from the restrictions that a tripod may have and the flexibility that a gimbal won't have. When you're shooting something handheld, you really have a lot of options of where you can point the camera, the height that you place your camera up and down, and the amount that you can move from side to side. Now it's a trade-off because a handheld shot is going to offer a lot less stability than a tripod or a gimbal, but you're going to give up that stability for a lot of flexibility and options during your shoot. So right off the bat, that gives you some insight for when you're ready to shoot and you have no idea how you want to utilize your camera. Asking yourself this question is a great way to start. Will my scene or video benefit the most from a tripod shot, a gimbal shot, or a handheld shot in your current scenario? So now let's move to the next fundamental. Now when we're shooting, let's talk about why we would decide to do camera movement versus zooming with the camera. If we zoom with the lens on our camera or our phone, we are magnifying what is at the center of the image and enlarging it. If we move our camera, we are physically bringing the camera closer to what's in front of it. Now, the plus of this is that it creates a shift in the background and creates a much more dynamic looking image because there's a conversation happening with the camera, the subject, and the background. And that conversation you can only get from physically moving the camera. You can't get that from digitally or manually zooming in on your shot. So we can see a side-by-side comparison here of what a wide and static shot looks like versus a close-up with movement. So simply put, the camera and the lens is what shows your viewers what to look at. But the techniques that you're gonna learn, just like camera movement, are what tells the viewer how to feel about what they're looking at. So let's dive into some more of Luis's decisions on how to use those techniques. If we get back to our main light source that we're using for this very first setup, the coloring of this light is the same temperature as daylight. This gives our image a very natural and realistic feeling. Now, if we were to change our temperature to a much colder light, you can see we haven't changed any of our other techniques, but just by simply changing the color temperature, we've changed the entire feeling of our image. Now, something else that changes the feeling of your image is the lens choice. Now here, Luis is deciding to use a Sigma 18-35mm 1.8. And if you don't understand these terms yet, don't worry. I promise we're gonna dive deeply into this information. So Luis is deciding to shoot a wide shot here. We have a large depth of field, meaning a lot of our image is gonna be in focus. The foreground and the background is gonna remain relatively at the same level of sharpness. This is great for wide shots. This is great for when you want you or your subject to be in focus and you want the background to be in focus. And for the next shot, Luis decided to switch over to the 70-200mm 2.8. This is a much more telephoto lens compared to a wide angle. So he's going for a much more shallow depth of field and getting zoomed way in so we can pick up on details of our subject rather than information in the background. So we're deciding to show detail of our character, her clothes, and the expression that she has versus her in the surroundings that she's in. You can make that same decision by deciding what is an important part of the story that you're telling. Using different lens choices is an excellent way to better tell that story. And here we're moving to our next setup. Luis has a little bit more of a softer, more diffused lighting source for this location. And we're adding a little bit of fog to create more atmosphere. This is perfect to add another layer of texture and depth to what's in front of the camera. And now Luis is deciding to do a push-in shot, which is making you focus in on the character as we're moving the camera closer. It's really the same exact thing as a microphone. If I move away from the microphone, it's a completely different feeling compared to me moving closer to the microphone. Visuals work in the same exact way. And we're using this situation to really maximize the amount of shots that we can get. So now that we moved up close to the character, now Luis is deciding to continue to record, but to move away from the character to gather even more coverage. And you can really feel the difference here of moving into our scene versus leaving or doing a pull out and moving out of a scene. The trick here is really to, as you move forward as a video creator, think of your shots as having a beginning, middle, and an end. If you're doing a push in into something, that's moving into something, starting something, beginning a shot. If you have maybe a tripod shot or you're doing a tracking shot, that could feel like a middle shot. And if you decide to do a pull-out shot, that could really be your ending or concluding shot of your scene or video. And that is our first two setups for this shoot. So now let's talk lenses. focal length and lens choice is really something that we dive into this course to really make your talking video, interview videos, and any other kind of videos really look a lot more professional. So one of the first questions you might have when shooting is whether you should use a zoom lens or a prime lens. That's a great question because there are a few key benefits and drawbacks to each type of lens. If we start off here with the prime 50mm 1.4, we can see is a very shallow depth of field. Our subject is razor sharp and the background is very blurry. The downside to this is that there's no zoom function. You can't move from a 50mm to 70mm. You have to actually physically move your body and your camera closer and further to what you're shooting. Now, the trade-off is that you're giving away that ability to get multiple shot types with one lens for the great looking shallow depth of field, which looks really cinematic and creates kind of a one-pointed focus. Whatever is in focus on camera, the viewer's eye fixates on, and whatever is out of focus with the prime lens kind of falls off into the background. And this really just allows for you to also get a much larger maximum aperture, which lets more light into the lens and allows for you to shoot in different scenarios with much lower available light. Now when Luis switches over to his zoom lens, now we're shooting on a 24-105 at 4.0. So without having to move, we can get a wide shot, we can get a close-up, we can get a medium shot, all very quickly and easily. So we're getting multiple focal lengths and multiple different framings with one single lens. So with this 24mm at 4.0 and this 50mm at 1.4, you can see a huge difference. With the 50mm, we see the subject very sharp. We see a very cinematic looking image of our subject. And on the 24mm, it feels much more of a behind the scenes, kind of less produced, less professional shot because so much of the frame is in focus. But as I'm shooting the behind the scenes here, I can very quickly shoot a wide shot, zoom in and shoot a close-up of just the camera, and easily choose different types of framing. Now at this next setup, Luis is deciding to throw on the 17-40mm 4.0. It's a super wide angle lens that he strategically chose for this very dramatic setting where we have the subject walking through this large doorway and we really get a feel for the scale and size of what's in our image. Compared to the 24-70 that I'm shooting in on, it's not nearly as dramatic and we're seeing a lot more of the majority of the image in focus. So we're clearly seeing the subject and where she is in the location. So the takeaway here is that as a video creator, you're using your tools to change the way that the viewer is feeling. And you don't need a whole lot of lenses. If you have maybe 2 lenses, and even on smartphones, they now have a wide angle function and a telephoto function, you can mix and use all of these different techniques together to create something that feels more professional or adventurous or action oriented. So now I want to touch on framing. If you've noticed, for pretty much all of these shots, we're framing the subject's eyes on the upper third of the screen. This technique is known as the rule of thirds. There's these imaginary intersecting lines that intersect at 4 different points on your screen. Now, if you place important parts of your image on those intersecting lines, it's a pretty good chance that you're going to get a good looking, aesthetically pleasing image. This is a great guideline and a framework to follow as a video creator, but as we're going to learn in this course, we want to learn these rules so that we can use them properly, but then also be able to consciously break them for a desired effect.